Hey guys, so I'm going to do a quick tutorial on how to show who's currently online on your website. And not only that, but what they're looking at and the last time they looked at it. I think this is very useful information, and every site really should have one if you're getting some traffic and you really want to see what's going on. So the way we're going to do this is, let's talk technique. First is we're going to have the database, which is this table called who's online. It's going to store our user ID, which is going to be our primary key, okay? The time being a date time, this is important. The page that they loaded, so just a text field here, and then their IP address. You don't really need the IP address, but we're just going to have it anyway because we can get it here. Okay, so that's the database. So the logic behind this is that since I'm using my own custom framework that I made called Cornerstone, I don't know why I forgot the name of it for a second, called Cornerstone, um, every page that gets loaded on this site calls the index.php page first. Okay, and just we're not really going to get into that part too much, but just to show you about that, my htaccess file, okay, routes everything to index.php. So the change that I'm going to make is going to be to index.php. However, yours may not. You might want to do this on every page that you have if you don't have a framework. Okay, just note that. So the change that I'm going to do here is because every single page on this website calls this file. Okay, so you would want to do what we're about to do on every page that gets hit by your browser. It only works if it's on every page. Okay, are we clear on that? Good. So, and let me cut this because I am going to type it, and you don't need to see it right now. So, how does this work? So the first thing we're going to do, okay, so again, the logic. On every page that gets hit, and again, for me, it's just this index.php page, we are going to say, if you're logged in, store your information. And not just store your information, but replace the information that is currently in the database. Okay, so to do that, we're going to first test if is set under _ underscore session user and then user ID. Okay, this is specific to my application. Yours is going to be different. I'm just saying, is the user currently logged in? And all I'm doing is saying, if there's a user ID set, that means you're logged in. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to first get the user ID, which is this. Okay, that's my user ID. We're just storing some variables here so we can write our query. And then we're going to say, what page are we on? Well, we're on underscore server request underscore URI. This is a global variable that gets set by the browser, basically, set by the server, and tells you what page you're on. Okay, and then the next thing that we're going to grab is the IP address, which again you don't have to, but in my case we're going to, which is _ underscore server, and that's remote underscore ADDR. Okay, so now we've got our piece of information, so let's write our query. So MySQL underscore query, okay, replace into. Okay, we're going to replace into. The way replace works is it basically using the information that you set, it will delete that row and insert this as a new one. It's not going to update, it's going to completely replace it. How does it know what to replace by? Well, note, back in the database, we did not have a random ID as our auto increment value. We don't even have an auto increment value. All we have is our primary key being our user ID, which means when we go to replace, it's going to replace the match for the user ID. That's how this is going to work. Okay, so we're going to replace into who's online. Okay, set. Now here's the key, user ID. We're going to set user ID. This is the field that is the primary key. Therefore, if it finds a match for this, it's going to remove it and then add it. Why are we doing this? Well, this saves us from having to check if it's there and then do an update. It really is a lot simpler by doing this. Equals UID, okay? And then we have another thing to add. We have two more. We're going to store the time, okay? Time equals now is going to store the date time at this current time, okay? Page equals page, and IP equals IP, okay? That will, no matter, every time you load a page, it will update that. So let's save this, okay? And I'm going to refresh. I'm on the admin stats page right now. Let's go to our table here, and it says I'm 24995. This is the current time, and reports get order item. So actually, so the reason my index file is loading this page, and this is good for my case, is because my index page gets called when any AJAX function gets called as well. So this actually tells me what method I just called, and it's actually the last one that just got called on the page, which is the order item data. So if I were to go to, say, let's not go to a page that is AJAX on it, let's go to my videos page. Okay, so if I load the my videos page, this is going to now say /my videos, and my IP address, because I'm local, is ::1. So you can see it working. As I move, it's going to change it. So if I go to /store and I refresh, it says /store. Okay, so you see how that's working? It's kind of cool. If you're on the store, let's say that things are going on, if I add something to the cart, it'll actually show up here. But again, that's only because I'm using my framework. Okay, that's really not something that you're going to be doing if you're not using my framework, and since I haven't released my framework, you're not using it. Anyway, refresh, reports, get ordered by data location. Okay, so this is telling me what's going on with what user. Okay, next step, let's display this information to the user. Okay, yes, so let's go ahead and go to reports controller. Actually, before that, let's go to stats. This is the page that we want to show it on. Well, we're using OpenJS Grid, and so we're just going to make a grid to show this information. Super simple. So instead of wasting your time, I'm just going to paste in the grid, paste in the table called. Really simple. I'll actually explain it. So table class is grid and online. The action is reports /get who's online. This is the method, the AJAX method that's going to get called. Title is going to be online in the last 10 minutes, so we're going to do this by 10 minutes. I want the username, the IP, the time, and the page. Super simple. I'm also going to be linking to the user ID. And per OpenJS Grid 1.5, we can now link to column data that isn't actually in our grid, which is really cool. I'll show you that in a second. So now we've got our table call. We actually need the call up here as well. So let's just say online, and now that's going to load our grid. So if I save that, well, it's not going to do it yet because I didn't make this method. So let's go to reports and make a new method called get who's online. So here's reports and function get who's online. Okay, and let's go ahead and do our grid function. So what we need to do, so we're going to start by, since we're using OpenJS Grid, we're just going to require our grid file. We're going to say make a new grid, and we want to use the table who's online, just like that. And then we want to do something extra special because we don't just want the user ID, right? So let's go back to here. We don't just want this user ID, right? We actually want to join on the users table and actually get the person's username because that's what we care about. So what we're going to do is add a left join to our OpenJS Grid. We're going to add that just like this. So now we've added a join, left join users on who's online.userid equals users.userid. So we're basically just joining so we can get the users table, which means we can get our fields now. So grid fields equals array, and we want the two fields. Well, we want our specific field being the username, right? So we're going to say username, and that's going to be users.username, because that's on that table. And then we also want that extra piece of information. We want the user's ID. We do, because we're going to be using it in that link. Even though it's not showing up in our grid, we're still going to use it. So we want user ID, and that's going to be this users.user ID, I believe. Okay, so that's going to select both of those pieces of information that we need, and then we're just going to grid load, and so you would normally do echo JSON encode grid data. That's how you would do it, but I actually have a method wrapped around this, so I'm going to do this JSON grid data. Okay, and that will load the data. So now I save that and I refresh, and I have a PHP error. Let's see what that is. htdocs log, htdocs mamp logs. Delete all that. Let's refresh and get a fresh error, and it says syntax error, unexpected equal sign, reports line 20, which is right here because this needs to be an arrow. There we go. Save and refresh. Beautiful. And there's our one row. So now we're showing the information. But we have a problem. We're not actually deleting any rows that are later than 10 minutes. This would be here forever. It's never going away. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to do that in a really simple query. What we're going to do is We're not going to do it every time an entry gets added because that's then two queries. Something has to happen every time. The only time we ever want to delete items from this table is when you go to view the table. So here, at this point, this is when we're going to delete. So in this who's online function, which only gets called when you're viewing who's online, so it's minimal damage to the server, we want to delete all users from this table who haven't been active in the last 10 minutes. We can do that with one single delete query, but it's a little bit of a complicated query. Let's talk about it. Open this up, go to query, let's start writing. We know we're going to be doing delete from who's online, right? We got that part. Okay, so we're going to come back to that. If the difference between now and the time, being the time that we have stored, being the stored time, I shouldn't be writing this in here, whatever. If the difference between now and the stored time is greater than 10, then delete. Okay, that's the English of what we're doing. If the difference between now and the stored time is greater than 10, then delete. Okay, and it's not just this, but it's if the difference between now and the stored time in minutes, okay, that's kind of a key there, in minutes is greater than 10, then delete. This is the English version of what we're about to write. So first, let's see if we can figure out how many minutes, before we even do the delete, how many minutes is the difference between now and the stored time. So let's say select, okay, and what we're going to select is, basically we're going to use an awesome function called timestamp diff, okay, timestamp diff, okay, and timestamp diff takes three parameters. It takes a unit, it takes time 1 and time 2, okay. Now, I know this is tough to follow for a second, but basically you could tell it what unit of measurement you want returned. In our case, we want the minute because we want 5 minutes. Time 1 in our case is going to be from when to when. So our time 1 is going to be our stored time, okay? And that is our who's online dot time, okay? Do you remember in our right here? So we want time. So time, and our time 2 is between that time and now. All right? So we're saying, give me the difference in minutes between the time that's stored and right now. Okay? And so if I actually run that, unknown column time. Oh, I didn't do the from, because I'm an idiot. From who's online. Okay? So if I run that, it tells me 3, meaning it's been 3 minutes since I just added that to the database. Okay, so using this knowledge, instead of doing a select, we can say delete from who's online where this number, which is going to be a number, okay, using that number greater than 5, or sorry, greater than 10. Delete from who's online where timestamp diff in minutes between time and now is greater than 10. So if I run this, it's not going to delete it because it's not greater than 10. It's 3, remember? But if I make it 2, let's say I only want to do 2 minutes, one row affected. Content, refresh, that row's gone. So what do we need to do next? We need to use that query. So we'll go to the query page here, and here's our query. We've changed this from 2 to 10. So we'll copy that. We'll go to our code, and we'll paste it right here where we have the comment. Well, we need to actually run it in a query. So you guys are going to do MySQL underscore query and run your query, but because I'm using the framework, I'm actually going to use my built-in method for running queries, which is that. All my built-in method does is actually log all my queries, which is really nice. So we're going to run this query. Again, we're only running it when you want to show because we don't need to have the energy of the database spent when you're adding entries to the database to the database. All we want to do is have the energy spent when you're looking at it. So save that, come back here and refresh, and here's our one row. So I'm actually going to go open the site on another computer, and I'm going to log in as a different user over here. Oops, I think it's Sean Test 8. There we go. So I'm logged in. You see I'm on my video. So if I actually come back over here and refresh, you can see now there's another user, Sean Test 8. Again, I have the same IP address. and you can see that I am currently on my videos. If I'm over here and I go to, let's say I go to the store, now I come back over here and refresh, immediately you see that I am now on the store page. So you can see it's easily and nicely tracking who's online and where they are.